You ever have one of those days where it feels like the whole world's standing between you and what's rightfully yours? Yeah, that happened. Picture this. I'm standing there staring at my own gate, my grandpa's gate, the same one I fixed with him a dozen times as a kid, chained up tighter than Fort Knox. My cattle behind me panting in the Texas heat, water so close they could smell it. But some HOA president decided my family's legacy clashed with her community standards. The only thing clashing that morning was her face when she realized the land she fenced in wasn't hers at all. Let me back up a sec. You ever notice how silence changes when animals are thirsty? There's a music to it, a kind of anxious rustle that seeps right through your bones. That was the only soundtrack on my ranch that week. The creek was running low, the Texas sun was melting everything, and the only way to water was through the old lane skirting Whispering Creek Estates, a patchwork of fancy houses squatting on what used to be open range. My grandpa always said a shared gate makes the best neighbors. For 50 years, a handshake with old Earl Schmidt was all it took. That's until Karen Underwood showed up. Now, Karen didn't wrap my ranch in steel. She boxed my gate in with a fresh chain and 2 panels. Basically built a corral around the one thing keeping my herd alive. I pulled up boots in the gravel, feeling the heat and that cold metal chain like a slap in the face. There was a new sign, too. HOA logo, all official, like their rules could erase 50 years of history. I dialed the number and Karen picked up, her voice clipped and chilly. The board has decided to secure all HOA access points. Translation. My cattle, my whole way of life weren't her problem. The law apparently was on her side. I called the sheriff. Deputies arrived, all blank faces and polite script, and Karen sashayed over like she was closing a deal at a bank. They listened, but it was clear which side they'd already chosen. The suit, the SUV, the perfect smile. They nodded to her, called me by my first name, and left me with take it to court. So there I was, staring at a chain that weighed as much as my pride. The law had come and gone. All that was left was 100 thirsty cattle and the feeling that I was trespassing on my own land. See, my grandpa bought this spread with money from oil rigs, and every fence post, every curve of that creek was a story. The handshake deal, open use, shared access never needed a contract until people like Karen showed up, people who wanted the country view but none of the country reality. She didn't just see my cows as a nuisance. She saw me as a problem, though she'd never say it outright. I talked to Glenn Porter, a retired trucker with a memory like a steel trap. People who build walls like that aren't looking for neighbors, he grumbled, confirming what I already knew. Everyone always accepted that was our water lane. But the old ways don't count for much when you're up against a 3-ring binder of bylaws and someone desperate for control. You got to speak their language, Glenn said, and that means the law. Next morning, the squeeze got worse. A laminated notice on my gate, unauthorized use of common property, $200 fine, doubling every day. I tore it off, but the message was clear. Karen had power, and she wanted me to feel it. Soon a crew came planting a red private property sign that could be seen from the next county. People slowed to gawk, snap pictures, even pose for a joke. Karen drove by queenly, her sign doing all the talking. It was humiliation as policy. Meanwhile, I was hauling water by truck time and money slipping through my fingers. Nights I'd lie in bed listening to the fan rattle, wondering if I was failing my grandpa's trust. Every day the question got heavier. How far will a man go to defend his own? Thursday night, that question got its answer. A tow truck rumbled up, boxed the lane, and a board member, Brad, I later learned, chained it up tighter, adding a second lock for good measure. I recorded the whole thing from the shadows, not saying a word. Sometimes your enemy sets the table for you. You know what I mean? But I wasn't alone. Glenn showed up with barbecue saying, "They want you to break, don't." Then a nervous neighbor Paula called and said Karen was whipping up the HOA board warning them about people like you. She tipped me off, check the county plat maps. And Buddy Lane Disaster in a cowboy hat showed up with beer and a bad idea about crowbars. For a second I could breathe. I had a little support even if it came in all shapes and sizes. Paula's tip nagged at me. So I went to the county office, dug through dusty records and microfilm searching for anything about that lane. No easement, no mention of my ranch, nothing. My hope was hanging by a thread until I noticed the lane itself on the plat. Parcel 21B, a sliver of land still owned by the long-gone developer. Taxes hadn't been paid in years. It was heading for auction. I realized the HOA didn't own it. All this time they'd been the trespassers. I called a lawyer, Tom Beard, who confirmed it if I could buy the parcel, I could flip the whole script. Only I couldn't bid in my own name. Karen would outbid me out of spite. So my buddy Brett, a contractor, stepped in with his company, and we quietly bought the land directly from the county for back taxes. Every dollar I scraped together went into that sale, selling yearlings old equipment, even swallowing my pride, but it worked. The day we closed, Brett handed me the deed and a brand new lock. I cut the HOA's chains off. My own gate, swung it wide, and called the cattle. They came running a tide of brown and black heading straight for their creek. That sound, the low contented mooing, was music. It wasn't over, though. Karen showed up with the deputies ready for her victory lap. She demanded my arrest, but this time I handed over the deed, the transfer papers, and that video of Brad chaining the gate in the dead of night. The deputies flipped sides on the spot. "Ma'am, you're on his property now," they said. Karen's jaw just about hit the gravel. "This isn't over," she hissed, storming off. A week later, the lawsuit landed. The HOA was suing me for fraud, for irreparable harm, for daring to defend what was mine. My lawyer grinned. "This is desperation, Anthony. We'll fight it and win." In court, Karen's lawyer spun tales about community harmony and implied rights. Tom stuck to the facts, no deed, no taxes paid, video proof of intimidation. The judge listened, then cut to the heart. The property belongs to Mr. Ridley. The HOA's suit is dismissed. Oh, and they're paying your legal fees out of HOA funds. You better believe that got the neighborhood talking. Suddenly, folks started asking why Karen wasted their money, why nobody checked a map before starting a war. Glenn and Paula helped spread the real story, and soon enough the HOA board was out, new rules were passed, and that big red sign came down. Some nights I see kids at the creek skipping stones like it should be. Sometimes Karen's SUV cruises by, but she doesn't stop anymore. Funny thing, after all that, the land still isn't really mine. It's just my turn to take care of it, to stand up when the world says, sit down. And if you're ever up against a wall, remember, sometimes the only way through is to find the loose board. Trust your people, and never let anyone tell you that history doesn't matter. So what do you think? Was I right to fight this all the way, or should I have let it go? Drop a comment. Tell me what you'd do if it was your family's land, because honestly, justice is a lot more complicated than a line on a map.